Yes.
Gotcha. All right, guys, welcome to strategic planning. March meeting is the 14th, 7:31. Any questions or concerns with last month's meeting minutes prior to Ms. Weaver taking over?
No, I don't have any concerns.
All good? Anybody else? Okay, Weaves, all on you.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining. It's that time of year where we have to review some federal programs, specifically the title programs, to seek your input on spending and programming to date, and then potentially for the upcoming school year. In addition, there were 2 policies related to federal programs that we thought this would be a good time to seek your input on as well. And those were the ones that were shared earlier by Mr. Bruto and myself. So I'll start with the policies. So the first one's the Title I parent-family engagement. So I'm going to pull this up, and it's what I sent earlier today. What I did was went through it and compared it to our current policy and made notes, highlighted some areas just for you to be aware of that I think are maybe more important than some others, and then made notes on the side to help us with some talking points and to specifically get your input. I did link in here, this is not part of the policy, but I linked it in here for tonight's purposes, the AGCS compact. And this is what's given out to students who qualify for Title I services. As you'll see later on in the plan, it's referenced. So I wanted to make sure that it was here and you saw it. So going down through this draft policy, we'll head down to underneath authority. So in this particular area, the charter school involves parents, family members in the planning, review, and improvement of the parent-family engagement policy through the following activities. So currently we involve parents through our annual Title I meetings. And since COVID, those meetings have been either in person or virtual. And we also hold them in the morning and have night sessions to try and meet as many parents and families' needs as possible. We also send a spring survey and questionnaire to get feedback on our overall Title I programming, and usually around April, May-ish of every year, so we send that out. This next section here kind of coincides with that as well, and it speaks to how we're going to communicate Title I information to parents and family members. And the notes here, we do that through our AGCS website. So if you haven't seen, we do have a web page that Nora Phillips has been great in assisting us in building that speaks to all federal programs. We provide Title I notification letters to, again, any family whose children or child is receiving Title I services. So as soon as they start receiving those services, we alert the families via writing. Again, Title I meetings, we have correspondence throughout the year between home and school through email, phone, flyers. I do send a monthly news blast, I guess, distribution list out to all Title I and Title III families that provides them with a parent resource newsletter that just gives them tips and tricks on how to better support their children at home. And at the end of each quarter, progress reports are sent for any students receiving Title I services. So before moving on, does anybody have any input? Again, it's a small group, so you can unmute or pop it in the chat, but any input, either anything you agree, disagree with, think you should be added in these first 2 highlighted areas? Bonnie's asking the number of Title I families. I can tell you students, I think it's around like 150. I can get you the exact number and I'll share that with the group later.
For the communication portion, does anything related to like the parent information that we send out for talking points, or like how we are how we're reaching out to some of those parents who are Title I parents, but also L parents, to make sure that we are translating things for them in their languages?
Yes, that's a great question. And that actually comes up later on in the policy. So we do speak to that. Like right here, the next section, look at that. So this piece speaks to informing parents of resources and information that is understandable and uniform in format. And it should include these particular areas. So you can see 1, 2, 3, and 4 right here. And then number 5 speaks to providing language access services to families with limited English proficiency. So the pieces that we have there are the use of talking points, TransPerfect. That's the service we use where you can dial a number and pretty much on demand get a live interpreter to help you. There are some challenges with that. So any of the teachers or admin that has used it before, it can kind of be clunky because there's a long lag time between the interpretation of us explaining what's going on and the staff members at TransPerfect then interpreting it for our non-English speaking families. And they don't always speak education language. So that's why talking points has been helpful in circumventing that. We do often use, and when I say often, almost weekly at this point, I'm reaching out to the IU and contracting with them for interpretation or translation services. Just this week, we were able to create 2 supplemental positions for 2 staff members, one at ELC and one at State Road, who are bilingual. One is actually a certified interpreter. So both of them are going to be helping us out this week with conferences and hopefully moving forward with IEP 504 meetings, any sort of meetings we need them for, or any type of communication. So I'm really happy about that because that's something I know that we've been trying to do a better job in, and having somebody, now 2 people on our staff, current staff members who are assisting is great. Any other input for that section?
Hi, Jen, it's Tracy. I was just wondering, is there any specific thing for translating documents?
Yeah, it's kind of in this area too, is what they're speaking to. And I've in the past reached out to the IU, and there's another state level source that we can use that we used a lot during COVID, who translated a lot of the more formal documents we needed to have on hand. We often use Google Translate, which I think is okay for our small pieces of communication, but it's not recommended that we use that as the only way to translate documents. So I'm open to suggestions if anybody has any other ways to assist with that.
I just know, sorry to jump in. I just know a lot of times in IEP meetings, we always ask the parents if they want a copy in their native language. And oftentimes it's no, because we had the conversation with the interpreter and we're good, whether or not they're like, I don't want to waste more paper, or I feel good with the conversation that we had. So we do have ways of doing it and parents are offered. And I've only ever had one parent say, yes, I want the document fully translated. Some say like, can I have the agenda or the cover page? So we do offer it for IEPs as well.
Thank you, Caitlin. Yeah, I only remember one time as well. Yeah, and it can take, especially IEPs, they could take a few weeks for them to get back to us when we're looking for something to be translated. And yes, the cost is there, but the cost should not be a barrier to us communicating with families.
Yeah, I was thinking more in the lines of like when we do all of our progress reports and all these other things that you were speaking of. I mean, we do use Google Translate, but is that sufficient? Or is there a better resource kind of thing?
Yeah, I think for that purpose, because there's not a ton of, it's not too wordy, that I think we're okay with something like that. I don't know of another resource that could help us quickly in those situations. But again, if anybody knows anything or comes across it, I'd love to hear about it. And you'll see in a little bit when we talk about title funds and ways to spend money. Title II probably could be a good use of funds for something to assist in that.
Jen, this is Bonnie. Just a question, what kind of two-way communication do you get or feedback do you get when you are surveying these Title I families?
Great question. So I'm trying to see if it's in this section. I know it definitely comes up in the policy, but in general, we ask them about communication. We ask them if they know, are they aware of the services that their child's being provided. We ask about their overall perception of school and schooling. We ask them if they feel like our school environment is friendly and welcoming and inviting. I'd be happy to also, after this meeting, share with you last year's questions and results, and you can see them. We often only have a handful of families that respond out of the 100+, but
Yeah, I guess that's what I was wondering too. Is
yeah, it's very small.
Yeah, I'd love to see that, but
Yeah.
I do.
I can absolutely do that. Let me just make a note.
I mean, I would even be willing when I go out to the libraries, and because I go to 4 of our local school communities, we could even have something like that, or we could combine something so that I'm already in Coatesville, Parksburg, Kennett, Avongrove, like I'm already there. We could do something that maybe if we're closer to them, they would participate.
Oh, you mean in terms of like title meetings? Is that what you're referring to? Yes. So we've tried a variety of things over the years, because even for the actual meetings, we don't get a large number of participants. We've tried, going to local libraries. We've tried offering babysitting, food, dinner, and the turnout was minimal for sure. But I have no problem revisiting that and working with the rest of you and coming up with ways to really get ourselves out there. Okay. And Mags, this kind of speaks to that too, I think. The school shall engage parents and family members to participate in annual meetings through the following activities. So we're mandated to have at least one federal programs meeting a year. And we usually have that in the October, November time of year. And then oftentimes we attempt to have a spring one and we don't get very much feedback. So the past couple of years we've had to cancel them because we've only had like 1 or 2 parents respond and wanting to participate. So what we've done, go ahead.
No, I said I must have just been reading ahead.
That's okay. I'm happy you're reading it. Thank you. So we, like I said, we do day and night meetings, in person, virtual, and we get a pretty similar turnout for day versus night and in person versus virtual. So roughly probably 7 to 10 participants at each one of those. We've also tried to record our sessions and post them and share them out via email for families that couldn't participate, but it's hard to track that and see who actually watches or engages with those videos when you send them through that format. Well, and the policy states will involve parents and family members through the following activities. So providing them timely information, description of and explanation of the curriculum used, including assessments like PSSAs, and opportunities for parents to give suggestions on how to improve meetings and such. So as you can see on the right-hand side of here, it's very repetitive, a lot of this stuff, but again, open to ideas and ways to do it better, to definitely increase that two-way engagement like Bonnie was referring to.
So Jen, despite a lack of, overwhelming attendance at events, what's the success rate of the 100 and something students as compared to everybody else?
That's a great question. And it's student specific, which is challenging because there's a lot of factors that play into the overall success. But what I will say from a larger picture, and Caitlin, you can feel free to jump in because this is a lot of your world too, in terms of the data, and especially down at ELC. We are seeing less students needing interventions, which is pretty cool. So that's very promising for those of you in upper elementary to middle and high school, that the work that not only our classroom teachers have done, but our interventionists, and really targeting specific deficit areas early on. And I'm early when I'm saying kindergarten, first grade, before the gaps can truly widen. We're seeing an overall trend that kids are performing better than they have in the past. And I think it's all those pieces coming together. I don't know if Caitlin, if you want to add on to that, or.
Yeah, no, I think it speaks to the referrals from the school-based, like through MTSS, the students that we're referring for special education evaluations. The number is significantly decreased. I don't have a specific number, but the numbers that come through us aren't really that high, which is awesome. And then the kids that we do evaluate typically do qualify. So it means that it's working.
Thank you. Good question, Bonnie. Coming down to this section. So again, to ensure continuous engagement of parents and family members in the development of the parent-family engagement plan. So yes, we're kind of going through it here, but we also go through it at our annual Title I meetings. And when I send the surveys out in the spring, I ask for input as well. These are the things that we currently do, all the yellow pieces here, items 1 through 7. And then what I needed from the committee here was just to look at 8 through 11 and let me know if you feel like this is something we should include in our policy or not. Or like, as you can see with number 12, there's areas for us to add on.
What if we, like when I'm reading number 8, what if there isn't, or a Title I parent who would be interested in doing that? Like if we put it as part of our process or policy and there's no one interested, what happens then?
You're speaking to number 8, you said?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, that's a great question. What if there is no one? For me, I'd be happy with the parent involvement, regardless of whether or not they're Title I families. What I can say is in terms of the Parent and Family Advisory Council. So since we're not a school-wide Title I school, which means everyone K-12 is school-wide, we're just targeted, which means the funding goes to specifically kindergarten through 3rd grade. We don't have to have a Family Advisory Council, but we can if we choose to. I don't know if that's something that the committee feels like we should explore more, or if we feel like we have plenty of committees and we're committeed out and we can elicit this information through other means such as strategic planning.
I agree with that last thing you said.
I was going to say, I just think number 7 is the biggest one, and kudos to anyone that went to bingo night. I think having more and more of those events elicits that parent participation to sign up for things when they come through without having necessarily a committee, whether it's there's a bulletin board that's available for them to see, like not pushing that agenda, but having it available that while they're here, oh, I can look at the opportunities to get involved.
That's a great suggestion. Yeah, the family nights have been very successful. And I know ELC does a great job with the STEAM nights too, and I know that's coming up as well. So yeah, and I think the interactive experience, that was, I think, what made bingo so successful, is that the whole family could come, everyone could participate, no pressure, come if you can, stay as long as you want, was key. So I think you're right in maybe replicating things like that in the future, and then maybe sneak in some of the other stuff, like you said. Anyone else?
I agree with what both Maggie and Caitlin said. Just keep it simple and try to keep them involved with other things so that and sneak in Title I stuff where you can.
For sure, which can truly benefit everybody, right? Even though we're
And I believe you, Jen, do a good job of keeping it in the forefront of our minds by sending us articles and reminding us to do things in our staff meetings. So I think about it a lot, especially when are forwarding things and we're reading things.
Thanks, Max.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this part down here. So I just need to, personally, I need to confirm that this whole section that I striked out here speaks to school-wide Title I, not targeted assist Title I. So it's doesn't particularly pertain to us right now. Bruno, I don't know if you know the answer, but from a policy perspective, even though this doesn't pertain to us now, do we still keep it in the policy in case we become school-wide?
No, you can, I believe, strike it out as long. I'd have to go back and look at the contingency languages, but most of the time it is, if this does not apply to you, or you are not a Title I school, or you don't receive this funding, or things of that nature, they become optional, and then it would be a policy revision later on if we needed to add it.
Okay.
And is the difference, Jen, this is Bonnie, that we have to be a certain percentage of our students have to be Title I? Is that it? And are we even close to being a non-targeted school?
Right.
Are we close to that, or?
We're close. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the percentages, which is kind of tricky, that it goes off the number of students who qualify for free and reduced lunch K-12. So that determines whether or not we're targeted assist or school-wide Title I program. And it doesn't have anything to do with the students who are receiving Title I services. It's two separate things. So you can be qualified for free and reduced lunch, which goes against our percentages, or not, and not receive interventions, or vice versa, or both. So I was just the example, like Bill Gates, right? Quadruple billionaire, whatever he is. His children, if they qualify per MTSS framework, they would receive Title I services. So we're currently in like the 33-34 range of percentage of free and reduced lunch students K-12. When you reach 40% or close to it, like 38-39, then you can apply for school-wide. But that operates differently than what we currently do. And there's some advantages and disadvantages to that. Like, so you can spread the money out K-12 as opposed to just concentrating it to one area, and all kids can benefit from it. But there's a lot more documentation, paperwork, that whole like sections that I struck through on the policy here. So it's a lot more involved. But as we get closer to that 40%, because the numbers do increase every year, we think about it and talk about it more as to whether or not it'd be advantageous for us to do that.
Thanks.
In terms of overall program evaluation, so again, parents give feedback on our overall, like I said, programming, Title I programming for the year. So the items 1 through 5 highlighted in yellow are what we currently do. And number 6, again, speaks to the advisory council, but I think we kind of answered that question collectively with the prior section regarding the parent family advisory council. In terms of the compact Again, this is just what parents, students, and the school entity will do to make sure students will be successful who are receiving Title I services. So that was linked in that first section I spoke to. And that's shared out to parents at our Title I meetings and in the spring in our survey and questionnaires.
Hey, Jen, before you get too far ahead, I don't
Sure.
know. I know it's hard to manage the chat and
Oh,
that.
yes. Mhm.
So there was a comment for that list prior.
Yes. Mhm.
With I think it was up to 7, and then there were the others that were highlighted.
Mhm.
And the question was for number 9, would there be a vetting process for those participating in school review and improvement planning? Just thinking about the balance of having a reasonably sized group, but also one that is representative of a cross section of the community if possible. So that was one of the questions.
Is that, hold on, I'm trying to.
I think that was after the family night engagement.
Go all the way up here. This
Yeah.
one? Okay. So the section is number 9. Yes, we would have to come up with a process for seeking out anyone who would be participating in that discussion on review and improvement planning for sure. Just thinking about the balance of having a reasonably sized group, but also one that's yes, that's always challenging, right? Getting the right people at the table, so you are getting a nice cross section. And I think that's something as a school entity we could do a better job in, not just in this circumstance, but in the larger, making sure that all voices are heard. So I'm definitely going to take note of that and explore ways to do that. Yeah, and be mindful of having too many people in a group, right? Less people talk with more members. Thank you, Caitlin. Do we have any type of rewards for parent involvement, even if it was a quarterly raffle? Could be a $25 gas card or something for involvement, since we are trying to get them involved. Anyone have any feedback on that statement?
This is Sharon. I really like that idea, and I know that at my previous district we partnered with a social services agency sometimes too, and so when parents would come like for conferences or for different nights, we would they could get like a waiver to the food bank or a gas card or something along those lines to try to entice parents that normally wouldn't come. So I think that if there is a raffle or something like that, that could be really beneficial for those families that may have some barriers.
I love that.
Jen, I know we've done different incentives in the past, like for surveys and Avon Grove Charter School swag for participating in certain things. I think the one with the cafeteria where you got like a free, I don't remember if it was a free month.
Was it
month?
No, it was that they would come and turn the little thing in and they would get, like when it was on the car, that one is
Yeah.
about the
Well,
magnet.
that one, but we also had, I thought, like something with lunch or with giving a lunch voucher or free. I can't remember, but there was a lot that changed with COVID when they were getting free lunch, and then that incentive stopped. But I definitely think there's ways to build incentives again into what we're doing. I know at the culture committee meetings with the teachers, I know we're talking Title I, but there's been a there's a decline in parent involvement since COVID, just getting kids back into school, and we're seeing a change in participation. So I know we used to have a policy where the PTO was saying if you wanted to volunteer in school or be a part of a certain amount of activities, you could waive by giving a fee or doing something like that. So I think we could possibly bring back some of the expectation of being a parent and student at Avon Grove Charter School and try to incentivize as a whole how we get them to be a part of some of these things. Like you hit a certain amount of volunteer hours or events or activities and I'm not sure yet, but you know where I'm going with that.
Yeah. I
They
know.
could even get like, I don't know if this, but like even pins or something that are very
Claire?
like exclusive or something where you have to volunteer like, oh, whatever, and you get this
Blue
special
jacket, you get a blue jacket.
Yeah.
We're talking like American Airlines frequent flyer miles here.
There's a catalog, a reward
Yeah.
catalog. Yeah.
But people
That's
would
good
they
in
would
PBIS points.
stuff.
And then
PBIS
Parent PBIS points.
Parent PBIS points. That's a great one.
I love that idea. Great idea.
That's what
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like pack values almost for parents, and like if there's like a special magnet for their cars, like for whoever said like volunteer hour or not volunteer, but like for committees and things that you participate on, something fun like that.
All great ideas for
Yeah, I
sure.
love those ideas.
Yeah. And we have been talking a lot about pack values for families, which is interesting. I'm not sure who brought that up, but that's been a part of our discussion for sure. So I'm glad to hear that others are thinking the same.
For
All right.
parents, for teachers, and for kids.
You got it. All right. I'm taking notes on all this. Keep them coming. Good ideas. All right. We're almost finished this one. This is in terms of use of Title I funds and what do we do with the funds? So looking for a little bit of input here on this section.
Well, I mean, if we could continue utilizing it like you did for the bingo. I mean, I know that the pizza night didn't happen, but I think if the more we make things like that available, I think people will come. So like giving the raffles or making sure we have the pizza or gas cards or.
And I think you're right too, Maggie, putting more effort into bringing events to the community, right? And that can be challenging for us because we span so many districts, right? And we can't be in 6, 7 districts at one time. But I think we can do a better job, similar to what you guys are doing at ELC with your kindergarten event. So making note of that. I don't know if anybody has any input on the number 4, collaborating with community-based or other organizations or employers with a record of success in improving and increasing parent and family engagement. I don't know if anyone has any experience in those areas or knows of potential partners. We've been collaborating a lot with the Garage in Avondale, which has been nice.
I mean, I am involved with Even Start as and they, it's very similar to Head Start. And they do the principals where I'll go. It's been since COVID, it's been all Zoom. But there's like a panel of principals that it's really for marketing and letting those the people participating aware of the different educational opportunities. So like I have a contact there. And that, I mean, that's preschool. I mean, that's for the little guys.
But still important.
Jen, I know at CST we talk a lot about community agencies through our SAP liaison, Linda Hershey. So she's in the know about a lot of the agencies around the different communities. So we talk a lot about like the Point and the Coatesville Youth Initiative. Messick and I just met with Chester County Futures. So she's a great resource. She knows all of the agencies.
Oh, thank you.
And Oxford Neighborhood Services, we've been giving them baskets through the Basket Brigade since 2008, every single year. So we have a relationship with them.
Do we have like a spot or one location where we have all of these contacts? located? Or is that something we could maybe?
We're putting it in our plan that we're working on right now. It should be done by the end of the year.
Love it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Is that your SAP team? Did you say?
It's through the Chester County Consortium that we're putting it all together, but it's part of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Just a question in the chat. Do any board members have any connections for community outreach?
I know
I would be
Charity does. I was going to say, I know Charity does.
I was about to say, I'm very connected with the Coatesville Food Bank, and I help run that. And then also our church is located down there in Coatesville. It's actually in the suburbs in Salisburyville by the Chester County Airport. And I'm sure that if we needed to host anything for Title I, and it could be done down in the Coatesville area, that I could talk to the leadership and see if they would be open to using the facilities and different things. And we did just create the hub there with video games and projectors on the wall with the Nintendo Switch. So kids are going crazy right now with it, and maybe an incentive to get the kids hyped to come. And I did come up with a cool name for our pack value for the parent group, Parents Actively Creating Kids. I thought that one would be great, you know.
Wait, say it again. Parents actively
creating kids. Just my joke. Just a little humor, guys.
That's funny. Well, I would love to, yes, hear more about your hub and maybe opportunities for us to share the space or use it for events. Thank you.
And I do also have some Spanish speaking leaders on my staff too, that could be present if it was scheduled in advance so that they could interpret for any of our Spanish speaking families.
That is lovely.
I see the question from Bonnie.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I see the question from Bonnie about, does anybody have any contacts there? I want to say Sam does. I know that she has contacted that agency before, so.
Add it to the list.
Bonnie, Linda Hershey also has good contacts with La Comunidad. They're awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So moving on here. The second policy, students experiencing homelessness, foster care, and educational instability. So there's, compared to our current policy, this one is definitely stronger in a lot of ways and defines a lot of the terms that we don't currently have in our policy. So there wasn't too much in terms of change here. I don't believe, but nonetheless, I'm only one person looking at it. I did highlight some things in here in addition that might just be important for you to know in case you didn't know. If you did, then it just reaffirms that you are in the know. So in terms of homeless, foster care, and educational instability, there are specific board policies and procedures to the extent that they create for barriers for the application, enrollment, attendance at school, stability and success of students experiencing educational instability. So this basically means that these areas outlined 1 through 6, that we need to do everything in our power to make sure students are not being held responsible for such due to their living situation. The key one that comes up a lot is transportation. So when students are identified as homeless under the McKinney-Vento Act, we have to, as quickly as possible, provide them with transportation to their current place of residence, whether it's a shelter, whether it's what's considered double up, living with another family member or another person. And then any fees and such, the charter school assumes those, so kids can still participate in all activities like everybody else. That includes graduation. Includes like the tech fees and things like that, free and reduced lunch. Lunch is waived for students who fall under this.
I do think that the teachers seem much more knowledgeable now with all that information being shared. Like
It's good to know.
yeah, like I don't know if it's just significantly more this year than even during COVID, but I hear a lot of teachers talking about it and being aware and then reaching out.
Yeah, I agree with that, Maggie. I think it's a couple of things. I think we are becoming more knowledgeable.
Mhm.
And it's not just the teachers, it's the entire staff. That is, and understanding the law and understanding what we can do to support. We've obviously, both buildings have put a lot of work into providing resources and support to families that are in these situations. But I also think the need is increasing too. So I think they kind of work hand in hand there for sure. Let's see, unaccompanied youth. So just wanted to know for this piece here, definition of unaccompanied youth is a homeless child or youth not in physical custody of a parent or guardian. This may include students who have run away, been abandoned, or forced out of their home, or separated from a parent or guardian for any reason. So this is probably more common than you think it is. When this is the case, per the McKinney-Vento Act, and which feeds into this policy, the board has to designate basically someone to speak on their behalf when applicable. So currently it's the homeless child and youth liaison, but it can be changed to any of those members there in our community, school community, or if there's someone else that we feel is a better point of contact. So any input there, one way or the other?
I think it fits with federal programs coordinator.
Thank you there, Caitlin. Yes. It does all mesh together. Yes. All right. So we'll go with that for now. We can always change it.
I think there's one thing to say is how important it is for staff when they hear kids talking about things, that how many situations can fall under unaccompanied youth and these kids. So like, while a student might say something in a nonchalant manner to an adult within the building, how important it is to have your ears open for those, because some of the things the kids say can trigger us needing to and wanting to provide help and services, where if you don't have your ears open, it may just kind of go in one ear out the other.
For sure. Yeah, and that speaks to the outreach. And that's an area that I personally would like to spend more time on, and helping our community understand, this policy, McKinney-Vento, what their rights are under this. So families feel more comfortable coming forward and taking advantage of what we can offer at school to just help their situation as best as that we can. And then I know I've spoken, to Barry Keith, our social worker, and he's even trying to, spread the word in an inconspicuous way with upper school students, so they can understand too, because oftentimes they're the ones we're communicating with, and they're the ones that fall under unaccompanied youth. So it's getting the knowledge out to them as well. This was something that we don't currently do, so has been adopted since our previous policy, and it's the need to develop and execute a graduation plan for students who fall in this realm. So you can see number 5 is the language there.
Jen, do they provide templates or samples, or are other districts already doing this in a sense of not to reinvent the wheel?
I have not seen it, but I think we can explore it more for sure. Absolutely.
That's probably something we can check with Chester County Futures too, because I'm sure they're already involved with this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a note of that. I think I have on Thursday, our quarterly meeting. We can event a quarterly meeting. I'll see if I can get an answer on that too. See if there's other schools that are doing it or those facilitating the conversation, have some resources.
Yeah, because their graduation plan is part of their Power School portfolio. And so, but if we need to add to that with like the post-secondary ed, I'm just wondering if our graduation portfolio and our counselor plans already cover it.
That would be nice, right? Instead of adding and creating more work.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think that number 5 came out of Act 1, where it's like if you have kids who are what does it say? It's like experiencing one or more school changes within a year, that you're supposed to, when they come in, sit with them and then map out what the rest of their sort of graduation plan would be. And you have to review all of their records and reach out to as many previous schools as you can with the knowledge that you have of wherever they've been, to try to see what records that you can get. And then if you're unable to get records, or to build that graduation plan, that they can be eligible for the Keystone Diploma.
Yep, and that's in here as well. That's down, I think, under maybe enrollment, maybe. Determine best interest.
Then there's a question, and I just want to know before we're allowed to answer it. The question is, are we allowed to share the number of students that are actually that are qualified on McKenna Vito for us right now?
Yeah, it's fluid from the perspective of, kids or families coming and going throughout the year. But the law and the policy says that at any point during the school year, a student who has been identified as homeless or unaccompanied remains so over the course of the school year, so the entire school year. So if a family is displaced for maybe 2 months and then finds permanent housing, in January, let's say, they're still considered homeless and afforded all the rights and resources that they would be if they weren't in a permanent house. So that the live number, I guess, fluctuates. We're around 15 right now, I would say, is current that we know of. There are also some families that we know are in situations like this and don't want any services, don't want the help or for whatever reason. Those we don't always capture, though. It's hard to get a true count, is what I'm trying to say. Let's see, this dispute. So the dispute is just that at the end of the school year, typically, there's a process for sitting down as a team and reviewing kind of where our families are and their situations are, and determining whether or not them remaining at AGCS is in the best interest of the student. So we work together as a team to determine that. For example, if you have somebody living in, let's say, Delaware, and they finished out their school year with us, but at the end of the year, we sit down as a team and we're like, listen, this student needs to get up at 3 a.m. to catch the bus to come to AGCS. May not be in the best interest of the student when there's a neighborhood school in Delaware that they're able to attend. So things like that we can sit down and talk about. But if the parent disagrees with our recommendation, there's a dispute process that they would follow, which means that we try and work it out locally. And then if not, we reach out to the IUs for support, and then it can go further, but hopefully not. See, I just removed some pieces here, such as career and technical ed, preschool, gifted and talented, as they don't pertain. Transportation, and then Bruto down here, I think is what you were referring to, the course credit and graduation, which feeds into the graduation plan. And the Keystone Diploma. And there's that. Question, do we have any sponsor families who may assist a child who is homeless? So right now we don't necessarily have a formalized sponsor family, I guess, program or procedure process. But we've been extremely fortunate to have donations, either from staff members, some people we don't know, they're anonymous donations. We've had the Lions Club provide donations. We have federal money through Title I. We have federal money through ESSERS that also have been very helpful in assisting our families that have been in these situations, in addition to local resources too.
I was under the impression, maybe I misheard, that there could be kids that have no one, like they've been forced out of their home. What if those kids needed a place to stay and someone had a bedroom? Could we have a list of potential places that they could go stay for the remainder? Say if they're a senior and they just wanted to stay in the district or something until they graduated.
Yeah, that's a great question. And a slippery slope from,
of course, because
right?
of the vetting process.
Yes, just from a confidentiality, from because you start to creep into the inner workings of the family dynamics and what caused the potential situation to happen. From a legal perspective, per the McKinney-Vento Act, our job as a school entity is not to coordinate, or I shouldn't say coordinate because maybe coordinate is the word we should be used, but provide the provide housing. Our job is to coordinate resources and help families find the resources available in the community to find stable housing.
And Charity, just so you know, like if we find out that kids don't have a home, like sleeping in a car is not an option. So we've made arrangements for those kids that we know need an emergency placement like that.
Yeah.
Maybe not in one of our homes, but made sure that they had a safe roof over their heads.
Right. And Christian's the key word there, she's right, is emergency. So there's been several times that we've helped families that were in true emergencies, just to get them a safe place, for a week or so. But from there, it's really our job to coordinate the services with the local organizations with them, and then the organizations take over from there. Hope that helps. Okay, I think that's all for that. And then lastly, in terms of federal programs and spending, we're not going to talk about ESSERS today because we'd be here for a few more hours. So we'll spare you all, save that for another time. But just the titles 1, 2, and 4 specifically. So this is money we receive each year, and in the summer, fall of the school year, I usually bring it up to strategic planning, and we talk about ways we want to spend the money. And then this time of the year in the spring, I kind of give you an update on where we are with spending and seek input on how we could spend the remaining funds. So as you can see there for titles 1, 2, and 4, those were the planned uses of funds from this summer and fall, this past summer and fall. And then from here, giving you just a quick snapshot on, again, how we plan to use the money, where we are, any special notes, and how much money is left currently. So for Title I, a majority of the funds are to salaries and benefits of our Title I teachers at Kimballsville. There's currently 4 of them. Parent-family engagement activities. We set aside money for the homeless allocation and Title I resources and supplies. So because we're a targeted assist school, those resources and supplies are specific for students receiving Title I services. So in addition to the salaries and benefits that have been paid to date, and obviously that 157,000 will still continue to be utilized through salaries and benefits for the remainder of the school year for those teachers, but there's still going to be a bulk of money left over. Some of it's going to go to Summer Academy and that programming that ESSERS doesn't cover, so the remaining will come out of Title I. And the summer reading bags. So every year we provide summer reading bags to all students who are receiving Title I services, and that comes out of this allocation. This number here, 157,000, is higher than it has been in previous years during the spring months or the second half of the school year. And a lot of that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Less students are in need of Title I programming. And how it works from the teacher perspective. We look at the number of kids and the amount of time that reading interventionists at ELC are spending with students identified as Title I. And then those percentages tell us how much of their salary comes from the Title I budget versus the general budget. So if a Title I teacher spends 60% of her time working with Title I students, then 60% of her salary would come from the Title I budget or allocation, and the other 40% would come from our general school budget. So this number is high. So we are looking for ways to spend more of this money. And for me, similar to what we've been speaking about tonight, it is the parent-family engagement aspect of it. So I'm open to ideas on how to utilize some of these funds. From a Title II perspective, we've used it on PISCD conference, grading and reporting, letters, PAE, TEP, and comply. I believe the PBIS conference is also in here. And then we currently have roughly 9,500 left to spend. I am going to here, in case anybody wants it. I'll put in the chat this and you can link if you want to see the allowable uses, because you can't spend the money on anything you want. There are some rules. And then Title IV, there's a PBIS conference. I misspoke, it's in Title IV, not Title II. Quaver Ed is a music program that elementary music teachers utilize. And then DECA and academic competitions funds pay for any sort of needs they have through programs like that, and transportation, subs, and such. So currently we have $9,000 remaining in that title as well. Anybody has any ideas from a parent-family engagement perspective on how to spend funds? Title II is a lot of professional development for staff. It is also hiring, retainment, and recruitment of staff. And Title IV is like a catch-all. It can be a whole host of things. It can be after-school programming. It can be enrichment opportunities, STEM, science, music. Just to beef up all around.
Hey, Weaves,
yeah.
have you thought for your Title II? Because you mentioned recruitment, maybe spending and allocating some funds towards marketing. I mean, you don't have much to do it, but you might be able to, $5,000 of that may be able to, get you fill a couple needs. So, whatever ways you guys think that it's the best way to market, whether it be on, a website or doing some type of commercial or whatever you think, but just something to think about.
Yep, from a staff perspective, right? You're saying staff and hiring perspective. Yep, I like it.
I mean, even if you put like some type of add-on like Indeed.
Mm-hmm. Taking notes, thank you. Especially in those hard to fill areas. Anyone else? Staff, any assembly ideas? That's something that could fall under Title II.
I know that we had really positive feedback on the social media presentation last year, which was
Okay.
really good.
Are you a contact for that, Ryan?
Yeah, I have a contact for it.
Okay.
His name is, it's Shape the Sky is the name of the.
Okay. Awesome. I'll touch base with you this week and get some more information. No one else, I don't think. It's a lot to digest. I appreciate your engagement and questions. So if there's things you think about later on, feel free to shoot me an email or reach out to, I guess, any one of the administrators here. We'd be happy to hear your suggestions. We appreciate your input. Blaze, Brian, anything else?
No, I don't have anything else.
No, I'm good on my end. So, I mean, I guess if nobody has any questions, concerns, we appreciate all the information. I'm sure everybody got a lot out of it.
Thank you.
All good?
I am.
All right, let's adjourn. It
Have a
is,
nice
what time
day.
is it? 8:33. Hope everybody has a good night.